Welcome back to Media7, where I'm discussing the state of music media with Zoe, Homebrew's Tom Scott and Flying Nun's Roger Shepherd. Last year, after criticism that its broadcast funding schemes for music were outdated and broken, NZ On Air commissioned a major review by former EMI New Zealand boss Chris Caddick. Caddick is now CEO of industry body REANZ, and NZ On Air has a new plan. It's called Making Tracks, as Sam Mulgrew explains in The Source.
For more than 20 years, New Zealand On Air music funding has helped us hear more of ourselves on air, 10 times more over that period. But a major report for the agency last year found the $5 million in annual music funding needed to be better spent. Enter the new funding model, Making Tracks. It's supposed to catapult the system into the digital age. Album funding is gone. Now, it's all about singles and videos. By paying for singles, NZ On Air can fund 12 artists for the $50,000 that previously went on just one album. Up for grabs now, $4,000 for recording and $6,000 for videos, but only if the artist can front an extra $2,000 of their own money. Not an easy task when many local records don't break even anyway. But 2 rounds in, and from 270 applications, 67 Kiwi artists have been supported. Under the old funding system, it'd take around 3 times as long to get through that many grants, so it's definitely more, but is it better?
Sam Mulgrew there. Now, Tom, I'm going to talk to you about this because for some time, you guys at Homebrew were the cause celeb. You were the little boys left out in the cold with NZ On Air video funding. How did you get them back on side?
Just had a whinge. Just threw our toys and then they listened, you know? So it just teaches the kids if you're a brat, you get your way eventually.
I quite like the way that you raised your own money for a video that probably would not have been funded by NZ On Air because of the irresponsible behaviour involved in it. But you also
There's still a lot of irresponsible behaviour going on. But they just decided to give us money because I think you can't deny that there's a presence out there. Like, I think we're maybe the poster boys for internet.
Yeah, because you did. Yeah, I mean, if you go to your YouTube channel, Homebrew Crew, there's a lot of videos there, and a lot of them are actually pretty good. They're really funny. Do you see it as something that has the same? You put the same sort of creative energy into as the music?
Nah. Music's first. That's just something on the side. Yeah.
Zoe, the numbers talked about there in terms of music funding actually aren't that big.
Yeah.
You're signed to Sony worldwide. There are people making videos for tens of thousands of dollars. How does that work for you?
I don't get tens of thousands, that's for sure. No, the videos that I've made, even since being signed, have still been relatively pretty low budget, but I'm kind of more one for clever, simple, cheap ideas as opposed to, I don't know, $1 million video. That's worked out well for me.
Do you think videos are still important? Are they as important, say, as, I mean, you had part of the launch strategy for your first single was a whole bunch of remixes being done, and
yeah.
that whole thing seems very strategic. How are videos still important compared to that?
Completely. I mean, constantly when I hear about some new artist or whatever, I'm like, most of the time I actually do go straight to YouTube because I want to see what they're like live or whatever, but it gets people excited when there's videos and an image to go with the sound, I think.
Does it work for you, Roger, the new scheme? Because one thing people have complained about is that artists or labels still have to chuck in at least $2,000 on top. Yeah, and these are records that aren't going to necessarily sell a lot.
It was good to see it explained, actually. So I know now what's... Yeah. I mean, a lot of people are missing out, so obviously there's not enough money being put in. But the problem is, it's, you know, some people miss out, basically. And I think for a lot of people, a lot of artists, it's pretty crucial. They either get the funding and can do something, or can't and don't. So it's been rejigged. Doesn't solve the basic problem. Not enough money.
Is it important because they appear on TV or because they appear on the internet? And this is a
TV waste of time. I never watch it. The kids don't even know we have one.
Where do people watch your videos, Zoe?
Mostly online, I'd say. Yeah.
Are there other ways, though, that you would like to try engaging fans? Because people are doing all kinds of interesting things at the moment. Who do you think's getting it right?
Trent Reznor from 9 Inch Nails. He's always in it right though. He was kind of the one that actually got me really excited about online craziness, doing things like putting codes on the back of like your roadies' shirts and then people in the crowd getting the codes, typing them in, and then finding secret USBs everywhere, like that kind of thing.
And Tom, I mean, you put the Peace record on Bandcamp and you didn't put a price on it, you said name your price. What's the appeal of that?
Well, it's free anyway. It's going to be downloaded anyway. One of my favourite musicians, a guy called Blue, he had a record coming out through a massive major label, and he just went to his gig and threw CDs up, and just it leaked by itself. So I reckon that's the way to do it. And sort of, he also didn't give us stuff about how he released it. He'd just say, oh, here's an album I made yesterday, and just release EPs every week, and his only gimmick was he tweeted with no space. You know, and that's enough for me. Cool.
And Roger, I'm not going to ask you about that because you'd be too traumatised to talk about giving music away. Thank you, Zoe, Tom Scott and Roger Shepherd. And that is not actually the end, because if you pop along to our website, we'll have a media7 extra with some more discussion about that. We move now to popular culture of another stripe. Sydney's Graphic 2011 Arts Festival was colourful and occasionally controversial, and Jose Barbosa was there.
I think we can acknowledge that just about every medium that we consider mainstream today has at one time been reviled, treated with suspicion and otherwise marginalised. But for my money, the one medium that's had the most amount of scorn piled upon it is that of the nerd's refuge, otherwise known as comic books.
This comic book describes a sexual aberration so shocking that I couldn't mention even the scientific terms on television. But they're not reading anything constructive. They're reading stories devoted to adultery, to sexual perversion. You can see the tension develop as the story gets more gruesome. And if it's a bad one, the kid has a mass of jangled nerves by the time he's through it.
For many years, it was seen as just a children's medium. It was seen as a medium incapable of a great degree of depth or breadth. I think in the last 15, 20 years, we've seen a lot of artists who understand that that's not true and are willing to prove it.
So I've come to Sydney, Australia, and to the Sydney Opera House, Australia, to the Graphic Festival, where creators like these have been honoured.
Artists like Peter Cooper, whose ballistic political commentary found a bolt hole in the form of comic books.
During September 11th, there was that moment in time where there was a real shutdown on what you could talk about, and mainstream media had a fairly narrow point of view, and what was generally being put out there was a lot of things that a lot of us didn't agree with. We were rather quickly able to put together an issue and talk about these things, including our opposition to jumping into yet another war. At those kind of moments, you realize how extremely important it is to have as wide of a range of points of view and the possibility to get them distributed.
And Jim Woodring, whose queasy phantasmagoria illustrates a fraught inner world.
Artists are a dime a dozen, but cartoonists are rare and wonderful. That's sort of an obnoxious thing to say, but in a way I sort of feel that there's a little bit of truth in that. I think good cartoonists have to know how to do an awful lot of things, and they have to embrace a lot of disciplines that modern artists don't have to in order to succeed.
So you could say it's a grown-up medium. Unfortunately, responses to it aren't always as mature. Alternative comics superstar Robert Crumb was due to appear at Graphic, until he took offence at the Sunday Telegraph article in which he was described as a self-confessed pervert. Crumb pulled out of the festival.
I can't remember the name of the person who wrote that article, but I think they're a malicious pig, and I hope they get what's coming to them.
I found it interesting that someone was moralising in a paper owned by Rupert Murdoch as well.
That irony escaped practically nobody. The idea that R. Crumb is some kind of a monster and Rupert Murdoch is an upholder of virtue and sanctity is disgusting beyond words.
But with sales down by 7% in the States, how is the medium faring in the current print crisis?
The revenue shrinking on all fronts. Advertisers are not there as much, therefore page count goes down. People don't want to pay for content, and so then they don't want to pay for the content providers. And so it's a very difficult walk right now for people like myself.
DC Comics, the publishers of Batman and Superman, recently announced they would be publishing their books digitally on the same day print issues arrive at the store.
I think it's very important that any kind of digital display of comics be simple and be what I think of as a single navigation model. That is, you shouldn't have to change the way you get from panel 5 to panel 6. It should be the same way you got from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, and 4 to 5. Because that's the way that you forget about the navigation and can really concentrate on what matters, the art, the story, the ideas, and just lose yourself. I do believe that people will always want to read stories, that comics will always be a source of great stories, and that artists will find a way to express themselves no matter what.
And that's our show. Thanks again to Jen Long, Zoe, Tom Scott and Roger Shepherd, and to you for watching. We'll be back with Media 7 at the same time next week. Until then, goodbye.